How are you? Well, very simple question, right? Now I'm sure you're probably thinking, I want to say, I'm fine or I'm fine, thank you. Well, most of us answer, how are you in these typical ways. But guess what? That's getting a little boring, to be honest. So in today's lesson, I want to show you some really creative ways to respond to this really simple question, but a very important question. So I have broken down this lesson into 3 parts. I'm going to show you some really nice, positive responses to answer to this question. But then you also need to know some neutral responses and some negative responses when you are not feeling too good. But first, before we go to the responses, I think we should know the different ways that people ask, how are you? So, typically, people may ask you, how have you been? Or they may go for a more informal question and say, what's up? Or they may say, how you doing? Now, I'll tell you what, this is not a grammatical mistake because most of you are used to hearing, how are you doing? But when you're kind of greeting someone, you simply say, how you doing? It's very informal. It's not grammatically wrong. And then there are some people who say, hey, how are you holding up? Okay? But now, whatever these questions are, we are going to learn, like I said, some really creative ways to respond to it. So, I'm going to start with some really neutral responses. Okay? I've given you this blue color all around me because it's a neutral color. So let's learn some neutral responses. You could say, just the usual, which means it's not good, it's not bad, it's just the usual, a regular day. Or you could say, I am just fine. Okay, I'm just fine is really neutral. It shows that you are not too happy, not too sad. The day is going just like a regular day, as I mentioned before. Some people say, not bad. What about you? Now, I think it's really good to sometimes ask the question back to the person who's questioned you in the first place. Why? Because it shows that you are polite. So when someone says, how are you? You say, not bad. What about you? Okay? And then the other very interesting response is, life's going on. Life's going on means it's going on, it's just the way it is, and it's pretty okay. And there are some people who say, can't complain much, right? Like sometimes we're in the place in our lives where things are going okay, so there's no reason to complain, right? So we simply say, can't complain much. Or you could say, just getting by. The word getting by basically means that I'm kind of just, working my way through the day. I'm kind of just going on one day at a time. Okay, so that's what it means. But then again, some people might want to say, just another day, thanks, which basically means it's just another normal day, the usual. Okay, now these were the neutral responses, but then there are some times your day is not going too good, you're not feeling too well. That's when you have negative responses. In those cases, you could say, not so good, unfortunately. I could be better, right? Like right now, I'm not doing very good, but I could be better, right? So you could use this very good sentence. Some people say, oh, I'm trying to hang in there. Now, hang in is a really interesting phrase because it basically means I'm trying to cope up. I'm trying to just get through this problem. Okay, so this is a really good phrase you must use. Sometimes I use this, I say, I'm kind of roughing it out. The word roughing it out means you're going through a rough time and you're going through that time, which really means that you are roughing it out. You might want to use this too. Sometimes people say, to be honest, it totally sucks. Now, this is an informal expression. You don't want to use it in a formal setting, but you could use it with your friends. Don't ask me today. Have you ever felt like you don't want to talk about your day? It's so bad. So when someone's asking you this question, how are you? You could simply say, don't ask me. Or you could say, you don't want to know, because it's so bad that it's not even worth telling someone. so you don't want to know. And we have one last negative response, which is, I'm like the guy who got no presents. Now, this is very creative because you're trying to compare yourself with somebody who had a really bad day. Okay, so you know when you have a Christmas party and everyone's opening their presents, well, guess what? You're the one who hasn't got any. So you're the guy who's got no presents. So you are comparing your mood to a person like a guy who's got no presents. So these were the negative responses, but guess what? There are those days where everything seems to be great. And in those cases, you must come up with some positive responses. So let's look at some really nice responses you could use when you are happy. So you could say, I'm doing good, and you? So you ask the question back to the person who's asked you, how are you? Or you could say, great, thanks. I've never been better. When you say I've never been better, what does it mean? It implies that right now you feel the best that you've ever felt. Okay, like probably the best day of your life. Some people simply say, I feel amazing. You could possibly add why you feel amazing. You could say, I feel amazing, I'm going on vacation. Or I feel amazing, I passed my driving test. Okay, so you can add a reason to this. Or you could say, I feel simply awesome. How do I look? Now, there are some people who kind of ask a question when a question is being asked. So why do we ask a question? How do I look? Because you want the other person to confirm that you are actually pretty good or you're doing great. So when I say, how do I look? And I have a big smile on my face, then you know that I'm doing really well. And last, we've got an expression which says, couldn't be better than today. Now, this expression is kind of like this one. It's a variation of this expression. You could use either one of them. Okay, so if you want something shorter, you want to use this one, or you could simply say, couldn't be better than today. Well, I'm sure if you use either of these expressions, you will realize that you can have a more long conversation with the person that you are speaking with, instead of simply saying, I'm fine, thank you, and having the conversation end right there. So please use these really creative responses and tell me how you've used them and which ones you like the best. Okay, I'll be back with some more lessons. Until then, this is me saying keep practicing, keep learning, and have a great day. Take care. Bye.